In the modern world, information is more valuable than gold. We live in an era where everyone is constantly connected, and because of this, we have forgotten the power of silence. We feel a strange pressure to be honest, to be open, and to share our thoughts with anyone who asks. But as Niccolò Machiavelli once observed, the world is not a playground of saints. It is a landscape of competing interests. When someone asks you a question, they are rarely looking for the truth for the sake of friendship. More often, they are looking for a key, a way to unlock your defenses, find your weaknesses, or predict your next move. Robert Greene teaches us that the person who talks the most is the person who loses the most power. To protect your future and your peace, you must recognize that some questions are not invitations for conversation. They are traps designed to measure your value or plan your downfall. Consider the story of a woman named Elena. Elena was talented, hardworking, and rising quickly in her career at a major design firm. She believed that being transparent was a sign of confidence. One evening, at a corporate dinner where the wine was flowing and the atmosphere seemed friendly, a senior executive leaned in and asked a seemingly innocent question. "What is your ultimate goal here? Where do you see yourself in 3 years?" In her mind, Elena saw this as a chance to show her ambition. She shared her detailed plans to take over a specific department and mentioned her ideas for changing the company's direction. She thought she was being impressive, but she didn't realize that the executive was friends with the person currently leading that department. By answering that one question, Elena had unknowingly declared war on a powerful superior. Within weeks, her projects were being delayed, and her influence began to disappear. She had revealed her intentions too soon, violating one of the core laws of power. Machiavelli would say that Elena failed to understand human nature. People are naturally protective of their own positions. When you reveal your future plans, you stop being a colleague and start being a threat. High energy and strategic individuals know that their true ambitions must remain in the dark until the moment they are achieved. When someone asks about your future, they are often trying to see if your path will cross theirs in a way they don't like. The correct response is not a lie, but a beautiful, vague cloud of words that says nothing. You can speak of growth, of learning, and of being focused on the present task. By keeping your intentions hidden, you maintain the element of surprise. You prevent others from building walls in your path before you even start walking. Silence is your greatest shield against the envy and fear of those around you. As the dinner continued, another trap was laid for Elena, this time by a co-worker named Marcus. Marcus was known for his charm and his ability to get people to talk. He leaned in and whispered a question about a controversial decision made by the CEO earlier that day. "What do you really think about the new policy? Everyone is saying it's a disaster, right?" Elena felt the urge to agree, to be part of the inner circle of gossip. But this is the second dangerous question you must never answer. What is your opinion of person X or event Y? Machiavelli warned that taking sides in petty conflicts is a fast way to lose your neutrality and your safety. In any organization or social group, there are hidden alliances that you cannot see. When you give a negative opinion, you are giving someone else a weapon to use against you later. Marcus wasn't looking for Elena's opinion to be her friend. He was looking for a quote he could repeat to the right people to elevate his own standing. Robert Greene emphasizes that a person who remains neutral is often the person who ends up in control. When you refuse to be pulled into gossip or forced into taking a side, you become a mystery. People cannot predict where you stand, and therefore, they cannot easily manipulate you. Elena, in her past, would have shared her frustrations, but after her recent setbacks, she began to feel a change in her own psychology. She realized that by answering Marcus, she would be handing him her reputation on a silver platter. Instead of giving a real answer, she simply observed that every decision has many sides, and that time would reveal the truth. She gave a non-answer. She remained a ghost in the conversation. By doing this, she kept her energy high and her risk low. She was learning that the more you speak, the more common you appear, but the more you withhold, the more powerful your presence becomes. The third dangerous question often comes disguised as a compliment or an act of vulnerability. Friend or a colleague might ask, "How do you always stay so calm? What is your secret for handling the stress that breaks everyone else?" On the surface, this feels good. It feels like your strength is being recognized. But this is often a search for your Achilles heel. People want to know what makes you tick so they can understand how to rattle you. If you explain your methods, you are giving away your psychological blueprints. You are telling the world exactly how to disrupt your peace. In the world of Machiavelli, revealing your internal mechanics is a strategic mistake. You should appear as a finished, solid product, an effect without a visible cause. When people don't know how you stay calm, they view your composure as an inherent part of your nature, which makes it much harder to attack. Arthur, another man in a different city, understood this well. He was a negotiator who dealt with difficult people every day. Whenever someone asked him how he stayed so detached and cool under pressure, he never gave a real answer. He didn't talk about his morning routine, his philosophy, or his past traumas that made him tough. He simply let them wonder. By staying silent about his internal process, he maintained an aura of invincibility. People were afraid to try and upset him because they didn't know where his breaking point was. This is the art of the high-energy soul, protecting the source of your strength. Your secrets, your methods, and your internal battles are yours alone. To share them is to dilute them. To keep them is to build a fortress of power that no one can enter without your permission. The fourth dangerous question often arrives during a moment of relaxation, usually disguised as casual curiosity among friends or family. So, how much are you actually making these days? To most people, this seems like a standard social inquiry. We are taught to be proud of our success and to share our milestones. But Leo, a man who had built a successful consulting business from nothing, knew better. Leo understood that money is not just a medium of exchange. It is a scoreboard of power and a catalyst for envy. When you answer this question, you are handing over a map of your territory. If you name a high figure, you immediately create a wall of resentment. People who once liked you will begin to view you through the lens of their own lack. They will start to wonder why you have so much while they have so little. Machiavelli warned that men are driven by two main passions, the desire for power and the fear of loss. He famously noted that a person might forgive the execution of their father, but they will never forgive the loss of their inheritance or the sight of someone else gaining what they feel they deserve. By revealing your exact income, you trigger the green-eyed monster of envy. Robert Greene's laws of power suggest that you should never seem too perfect or too successful without showing some minor flaws, because naked success creates enemies. When Leo was asked about his earnings at a neighborhood gathering, he didn't boast. He didn't even give a range. He simply smiled and said that he was making enough to keep the lights on and stay busy. He made his success look like a struggle. By doing this, he protected himself. He kept the predators away, the people who only come around when they smell a profit, and the people who want to pull you down simply because you are climbing higher than them. The fifth trap is even more subtle, often appearing as an invitation for vulnerability and bonding. Someone might ask, "We all have them, so tell me, what is your biggest regret or your greatest failure?" In modern psychology, we are told that sharing our failures makes us relatable and human. But in the world of strategic reality, your past is a weapon that can be used against your future. Leo had a cousin named Sarah who was always trying to get deep with him. She would share her own mistakes to make him feel comfortable, waiting for him to reveal a dark chapter of his own. But Leo knew the Machiavellian truth. Once a piece of information is out of your mouth, you no longer own it. If you reveal a past failure, you give people a way to label you. They will no longer see the successful man standing in front of them. They will see the man who lost his first company or the man who made a bad investment 10 years ago. Robert Greene teaches that you must recreate yourself. Part of that recreation is controlling the narrative of your life. If you talk about your failures, you are giving others the power to define your limitations. When you are asked about your regrets, the best answer is to have none, or if you must speak, speak of lessons that were quickly mastered and moved past. Never give a detailed account of a time you were weak, broken, or foolish. High-energy souls understand that their legend is built on their current strength, not their past wounds. By refusing to answer questions about his darkest moments, Leo maintained his aura of competence. He didn't let anyone anchor him to a version of himself that no longer existed. He understood that in a world of competition, your vulnerabilities are not bridges to connection. They are cracks in your armor that an opponent will eventually exploit. Leo also noticed a sixth type of question that usually came from his competitors or his more ambitious colleagues. What do you think is the biggest weakness of our organization right now? This sounds like a request for a constructive critique. It sounds like you are being asked to be a leader and a problem solver. But this is a classic Machiavellian trap. If you answer honestly, you are identifying yourself as a critic. You are creating a record of your dissatisfaction. If that information reaches the wrong ears, you are suddenly the disloyal one. Robert Greene's Law 38 says to think as you like but behave like others. Even if you see 1,000 problems, you do not reveal them to everyone who asks. You save your observations for the people who actually have the power to change things, and only when it benefits you to speak. Leo watched a colleague named David fall into this trap. David was brilliant but too honest. When a manager asked for his raw thoughts on the company's direction, David gave a long list of flaws. He thought he was being helpful, but the manager took those notes and used them to show the CEO that David was unhappy and unreliable. David was fired 6 months later. Leo, on the other hand, always answered such questions with praise for what was working, while offering tiny, harmless suggestions for even more growth. He never gave them a reason to doubt his loyalty. He understood that your true thoughts are a private treasury. You do not spend them on people who are just looking for reasons to exclude you. By keeping his critiques to himself, Leo stayed in the circle of trust, even while he was secretly planning his own independent moves. The energy of a person who doesn't answer every question is different. They have a weight to them. When you refuse to be an open book, people have to respect your boundaries. They start to realize that they cannot simply extract information from you. This is the core of the high-energy soul, self-containment. You are not a fountain that sprays water everywhere. You are a deep, still well. People can look into the well, but they can never see the bottom. This mystery creates a natural attraction. It forces others to move toward you, to try and understand you. And in that process, you are the one who gains the upper hand. Machiavelli and Greene both knew that the man who can control his tongue can control his destiny. The world wants to know everything about you so it can put you in a box. Your job is to stay outside of that box by choosing silence over the need to be understood. As the night deepens and the world feels more intimate, the most dangerous question of all is often whispered in a moment of artificial closeness. It is the seventh trap, and it usually sounds like this. What is the one thing you are most afraid of? Or, what is your greatest weakness? We often encounter this question when we think we have finally found a true ally or a deep romantic connection. Sienna, a woman who moved through the high-stakes world of international art galleries, had seen this trap set many times. She knew that in the philosophy of Niccolo Machiavelli, knowledge of a person's fear is the ultimate lever of control. If an opponent knows what makes you tremble, they don't need to fight you. They simply need to threaten that one thing, and you will bend to their will. Sienna once had a mentor named Julian, not the Julian of old stories, but a cold, calculating man who taught her the viper's lesson. Julian would often share a small, fake vulnerability of his own to encourage Sienna to share a real one. He wanted to know her. Achilles' heel. He understood Robert Greene's observation that everyone has a thumbscrew, a weakness that can be turned to make them do anything. For some, it is the fear of being poor. For others, it is the fear of being lonely or the fear of being seen as a fraud. When you answer a question about your fears, you are handing over the remote control to your emotions. You are giving someone the power to induce panic in you whenever it suits their strategy. Sienna watched a young artist named Clara fall into this trap during a private gallery opening. Clara felt overwhelmed and, in a moment of exhaustion, confessed to a senior critic that her biggest fear was that she was just a one-hit wonder and that her next collection would be a failure. She thought she was being brave by being vulnerable, but the critic was not a friend. He was a gatekeeper who thrived on power. A month later, when Clara was negotiating for a better contract, the critic subtly mentioned in a review that Clara seemed strained and lacking in long-term vision. He used her own internal fear to lower her market value and keep her under his thumb. He had taken her secret fear and turned it into a public reality. Sienna realized that your fears are the most private parts of your soul. To speak them is to invite the world to use them against you. High-energy souls keep their fears in a locked room and show only a surface of calm, unshakable confidence. This brought Sienna to a deeper realization about the nature of silence. It is not just about hiding information, it is about creating a presence of power. Machiavelli famously asked whether it is better to be loved or feared, concluding that while both are good, it is much safer to be feared. In the modern world, fear doesn't mean being a bully. It means being unpredictable and unfathomable. When you do not answer the 7 dangerous questions, you create a vacuum around yourself. People start to wonder about you. They begin to project their own ideas of strength onto you. Because they don't know your plans, your income, your failures, or your fears, they cannot find a way to categorize you. You become a wild card in the game of life. Robert Greene's law, always say less than necessary, is not just about avoiding mistakes. It's about making yourself seem more profound and powerful. Sienna noticed that the most influential people in her world were not the ones who gave long speeches or shared their life journeys on social media. They were the ones who sat in the corner, listened more than they spoke, and gave short, neutral answers to probing questions. By being a black box, they forced others to do the work of trying to please them. People naturally want to fill the silence. When you don't answer a dangerous question, the other person will often start talking more to fill the awkward gap, and in doing so, they will reveal their own secrets. Your silence becomes a mirror that reflects their own insecurities back at them. Sienna practiced this mirror of silence at a high-pressure gala. A rival gallery owner approached her and tried to dig for information about her upcoming exhibition. He asked, "I heard you're having trouble securing the new collection. Is it true your investors are getting nervous?" Sienna didn't get defensive. She didn't explain the situation or try to prove him wrong. She simply looked at him, tilted her head slightly, and asked, "What makes you think that?" The man, caught off guard by her lack of reaction, started stuttering. He tried to explain where he heard the rumor, and in his nervousness, he revealed exactly who had been gossiping about her. By not answering the question, Sienna had turned a trap into a source of intelligence. She had used Machiavelli's principle of using the enemy's momentum against them. This is the hidden benefit of being a high-energy, strategic soul. When you stop being a leaker of information, your energy begins to build up inside you. You feel a sense of internal gravity. You are no longer desperate for the world to understand you or validate you. You understand that the world is a stage, and you are the director of your own performance. Every question you refuse to answer is a brick in the fortress of your autonomy. You are building a life where you are the only one who knows the full truth. This creates a psychological invincibility that people can feel. It is the aura of a person who is not for sale, not for rent, and cannot be bought with a simple compliment or a fake gesture of friendship. As Sienna walked away from the gala, she felt a profound sense of peace. She saw the people around her, the ones who were talking too much, laughing too loud, and sharing too much, as people who were slowly losing their power. They were like open books that had already been read and forgotten. But she was a closed book with a gold lock. She knew that her silence was her most valuable asset. She had mastered the 7 questions, and in doing so, she had mastered herself. The path to power is not found in the words we speak, but in the words we choose to withhold. To stay silent is to stay in control. To withhold the answer is to keep the crown. The true master of power is not the one who knows everyone's secrets, but the one who knows how to keep their own. As we have seen through the journeys of Elena, Leo, Arthur, and Sienna, the world is constantly trying to download your data. People use curiosity as a tool to map your boundaries and find your breaking points. But once you realize that you are not obligated to be an open book, a new kind of freedom begins. You stop being a person who reacts, and you start being a person who acts. Niccolò Machiavelli once wrote that a prince should always be a great asker of questions, but a slow giver of answers. This is because the person asking the questions is the one directing the conversation. When you refuse to answer the 7 dangerous traps, you take the steering wheel of the interaction. You are no longer being interrogated. You are observing the interrogator. The solution to these traps is not to be rude or aggressive. In fact, being rude only creates more attention and suspicion. The most effective strategy is the miat of the fog, da. Robert Greene suggests that you should always seem to be answering while actually saying nothing at all. If someone asks about your income, speak about the value of hard work. If they ask about your fears, speak about the universal human challenge of staying focused. Use generalities to hide your specifics. Another powerful technique is mirroring dutto. When someone asks a dangerous question, simply pause. Look them in the eye with a calm smile and ask, "That's an interesting thing to wonder. What made you think of that?" Most people will immediately get nervous and start talking about themselves to justify their curiosity. In that moment, you have successfully flipped the power dynamic. You are now the one analyzing them. This lifestyle of strategic silence creates a high-energy auras that is impossible to ignore. When you don't leak information, your internal pressure builds up, and people can feel it. They see a person who is self-contained, self-assured, and deeply mysterious. They see someone who doesn't need external validation to feel important. This is the ultimate goal of the integrated soul that Carl Jung talked about. Combined with the strategic armor of Machiavelli, you become a person who belongs entirely to themselves. You are no longer a piece on someone else's chessboard. You are the player who has walked away from the table to build your own game. By protecting your future plans, your past failures, your income, and your fears, you are protecting the very essence of your freedom. As you move forward from this video, start practicing this fortress of silence in your daily life. Start with small things. The next time someone asks a probing question, catch yourself before you rush to answer. Feel the silence. Feel the power that comes from withholding. You will notice that as you speak less, your words begin to carry more weight. People will listen more closely when you do decide to open your mouth. You will attract higher quality people who respect boundaries and who are drawn to your quiet strength. You are reclaiming your life, one unasked answer at a time. Remember, in a world that is shouting for attention, the person who can stay silent and still is the one who eventually wins the war. Now, I want to hear from you. We have covered 7 dangerous questions, but there is always more to learn about human nature. Which of these 7 questions has been the hardest for you to stay silent about in the past? Have you ever regretted sharing too much about your plans or your finances? Or is there an 8th question you think we should never answer? Let me know your experiences and your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one of them, and